Let's see. And we're live.
Nice.
Hello, all the effect enjoyers out there today. We have a special guest with us on Effect Office Hours today, David from Superwall, who also develops Maple and Maple.dev and Hazel Chat, if I've got the naming correct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But before we get into that, I have a little surprise for you all. Let me share my screen. Share. Entire screen. Window. Can I share a window? Share a window. Okay. For all you nerds out there who were waiting for us to publish the first release candidate of Effect, today's your lucky day. We have published the first release candidate version of Effect 4.0 today. Woo! Under 4.0-rc.108. So we're continuing in pre-release mode, which is why the numbering is continuing. But this is our first actual release candidate version of Effect 4.0. So what does this mean technically? Well, I think we have a blog post that should be coming out shortly that explains kind of all the details here. But the idea is that our release candidate is meant to signal that we're in a place where we feel like we could ship a stable Effect v4. We feel like we've done a lot of work to try to get a lot of the major bugs addressed, a lot of the performance issues addressed, and we feel like we're in a place where this could potentially be the stable release. But we're not quite ready to publish a stable 4.0 yet, because we want you all to start upgrading your applications if you haven't already to Effect 4.0, and let us know what issues you run into, what paper cuts you experienced during the migration, what anything that we can do to fix things while we're still in pre-release mode, to make 4.0 as good as it possibly can be. And we're going to try to limit the number of breaking changes now between release candidate releases as much as we can, but we're still reserving the right to make breaking changes if we need to fix something or address something that is not working correctly. Here's the blog post. I was a little too quick on the trigger finger of releasing the 4.0 RC, but the blog post kind of goes into a little more detail about what does this actually mean. So anyway, feel free to peruse the blog post, ask us questions, let us know what you think. But yeah, we're really excited to finally be in this final stretch of 4.0 development, with hopefully a stable 4.0 on the horizon. So anywho, let's see what all the nerds are saying before we get into all the cool stuff that David's been working on. We still haven't shipped a Riverside version written in Effect yet, which is problematic because Riverside just always gives me problems. From Michael, hello, what's Effect? Unfortunately, Effect RC 108 has 0 downloads. I think somebody should go fix that. Congrats on the RC. Thank you very much. So all the unstable packages are stable now, right? Yeah, that's right. Everything is stable. LOL. 5.0 when? Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, anyway, now that that's out of the way, all you guys can feel free to ask questions about the release candidate that you have, but now that that announcement's out of the way, I really want to get into chatting with David about all the cool stuff he's been working on. So, um, like I said, David works for Superwall, but has developed these two applications written in Effect, and I'm particularly interested in learning a little bit more about Maple.dev, which I think maybe you could characterize it for us, David, and like I don't know, give us like the elevator pitch of Maple.dev and like I view it as like an observability platform sort of, but maybe you could give us like a little bit of like your summary of what it is.
Yeah, like I guess the best way to put it is like the observability platform that everyone always wanted. Um, since like I've basically tried like all observability platforms over like the last 8 years, and basically I'm trying to integrate everything that's like good from each platform into one platform, which means Maple not only does open telemetry, for example, but also has infra monitoring, has browser session support. You can do web analytics, and basically all in one query language that both you and your agents can understand, meaning you can debug it really well with your MCP or like with whatever agent you use with the MCP, as well as it's really nice to work with as a human for things like dashboards across services, monitoring anything really like end to end, and that's like kind of like the main point of Maple. Yeah, so basically monitor everything and trying to do everything really well. That's kind of like I guess like the
Yeah,
quick elevator pitch.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe we can like take a look through like the landing page here as well. Because I personally think Maple is developed very nicely. It's very like pleasant to look at. It's also very nice to use. And I saw on Twitter you had posted recently that you made a bunch of like performance enhancements to Maple like very recently, which I definitely want to get into. But yeah, the way I've always kind of looked at this platform is like open source observability. Because if I'm not mistaken, it is an open source project, right?
yeah, it's open source. The only like caveat here is like not MIT licensed, but it's
Okay.
like it has like the same license as Sentry. So like after 2 years, the code becomes Apache license, and other than that, it's basically you can use it, but just not commercially. Um,
Mhm.
so like you can free to use it just not commercially right now, just because I got kind of burned from like other projects. But yeah, it's fully open source. There's also like a bunch of people. It's self-hostable. Like there's a bunch of people self-hosting it, which is still not that easy right now. I will make it a lot easier once it's like a bit more stable from like an infra point of view. But yeah, you can self-host it, but also as a hosted version, and it's also like just a great reference for any service that you might build that's similar. Um, but yeah, like yeah, as you can see, like in the landing page, like you have like all of the standard stuff that you might be looking for, like just like look through traces, alertings, dashboards, just like the default query engines. Then, as you can see here, like also like tiered alerting, etc. Like all the stuff that you might think of. And then it maybe like a bit more interesting part if you actually click on like the local thing in the top sidebar, in the top bar. Yeah, so like that's also like the other part of Maple. I can demo that a bit.
Sure.
Also has like a local version, which basically runs fully locally. So like before, I often had like the full like Grafana stack running locally, and it's like really heavy. And this is basically just like a really lightweight CLI that actually runs everything. And then you have like a local UI that is specifically made to be local
Hmm.
for like your local development flow. So you don't even need like the cloud platform or like something really heavy to like develop locally, and then like kind of have like this nice tool. Like I don't really do a good job advertising it since like really separate. Yeah, you don't need to use Maple for this to be really useful. You need to do that better. But yeah, this is really useful. Yeah, I can demo that in a bit if interested.
Cool. Um, yeah, I would love to see a little bit more of Maple. Um, and then before we get like really into like the like a little bit of like demoing this product and a little bit in a little bit. There was another project you're working on called Hazel.chat, right? Hazel dot
Hazel.sh, actually. Dot
Hazel.sh.
yeah, yeah.
So, I think that there are some in the audience who would also be interested in looking at this repository on GitHub because I think it features, if I recall correctly, you mentioned to me when we were chatting about this that Hazel makes use of effect cluster and effect workflow.
Yeah, yeah, it's like heavily uses both of them. Yeah, it's kind of like the forgotten child right now. Like I have not worked on it in like 2 months since I've like been so busy, but it's still in active development, just like not for the last 2 months. But yeah, like it's also still already on like Effect 4. Both of them are, and it heavily uses cluster and also has like I would say Hazel has like the more interesting like tech behind it, since like a bit more complex from like streaming messages, etc. Since like a Slack thing. But yeah, it's like it's a great reference for anyone looking into like using cluster or like using streaming in effect, etc.
Cool. Um, well, yeah, maybe now is a good time to just like jump into demoing Maple because I'm sure that like questions will arise um, from that. Um, but yeah, like maybe you could like just you could feel free to steal the screen and like we can do a little bit of demoing of like Maple and then maybe we could get into a little bit of how effect is utilized inside under the hood and like I don't know, talk a little bit about that as well.
All right.
And
Yeah. Mhm.
you may need to for the you know the audience always complains to me about how tiny things are on the screen, so you may need to zoom in your terminal a bit.
Oh, okay, fully breaks my terminal for some reason. But yeah, okay. Hopefully it's a bit better viewable now. Yeah, let me just start with like Maple Local. So like Maple Local can just be started as like a normal CLI, and as we can see, for example, it just starts like a local dev server and with like an open telemetry endpoint, and then for accessing the dashboard, we can do it really quick here. Yeah, so like you just have like a local dashboard which with your local traces. So I have like an example app right here. So like for example, like it's just like a really simple to do app that I always use to demo it, to be honest. So like if we do something here, we can just see like traces come up, and yeah, we can just look at it. This is like a really like basic version of Maple. Basically uses the same UI components, but it kind of like simplified a lot for like local development. So for example, here we can now see our traces. As we can see, it also automatically um, linked both the web traces. So here we can see our HTTP client request from Effect Atom, and here we can see our server traces right here, and we always have like different views. So this is like a really nice way. Maybe local is a really nice way to like locally debug your application. Yeah, and this is like for humans. It's kind of like has really similar things to Maple, like the full platform that I will like show in a second. But yeah, this is like the basic things that you can use with or without using like Maple, like the cloud or like self-hosted. It's just really useful. And for like agents in this case, they can just use this query endpoint or the CLI to query it. It's really useful. Like that's like how I mostly do development now. It's just like tell agents, please look at traces through like Maple Local to debug all of the things that you've built, etc. It's really useful, and it's a really nice flow to make sure that also the agents already like annotates everything correctly to be debuggable later if you have might be having this later. So yeah, that's like the main thing about like Maple Local, and really the only thing you kind of need is like the CLI fully built also in effect.
So
Hmm?
so when you're running Maple locally, one of the things I was curious about when I was looking into Maple originally was like I like I obviously the tracing and observability aspects are really cool. But I was also interested in the like browser session
Mhm.
component because I what I didn't understand is the browser like observability session integration designed to be somewhat of a replacement for Posthog? Like if you're using Posthog to ingest like events on a website or something like that? Or is it really more of like application tracing rather than like user-based events?
It's kind of both actually. Like, um, kind of like Maple, I would say, like like the end goal is kind of like being like a super platform for like both, for like analytics as well as like for like debugging flows, etc. So like it works kind of for both, which is kind of nice. I mean, let me just show it like in the live Maple version. Like here you can see like the UI is slightly different since there's a lot more features included. But yeah, like for example, like if you look at replays, let's just take some user. Like let's take me. That's actually me live. So like might not be the best session. But yeah, like here we can see that doesn't have traces because I think it was just AFK there. But yeah, I feel like it's a good example here. Like we can see it has both in this case. In this case, like it already links backend traces. Let me find someone that some session that actually has some more data. Yeah, for example, for my colleague. So like, yeah, here, for example, we can see it has both. So in this case, like it automatically connects to your backend traces. So here we can see it has all of the traces here. For example, here it fetched something and when we open it, here we can see our like backend traces going. So this is really, really useful also for like, especially for agents, because you can just tell them like, look at Ian's browser session and debug it end to end, like what went wrong, etc. But you also have user-based events. You can see here, like for example, like the actual auto-collected ones, like clicking stuff, navigating to places, or like mouse movement, etc. As well as you could, I don't think I do it right here, yeah, but you can also do product events in the sense for like things like funnels, etc. So you can do both, and I do both. But yeah, I feel like most people currently just use it for like the debugging purposes, but you can definitely use it for both already to like
Mhm.
basically fully replace post talk if you want to, but not a lot of people do.
And do you have the ability I think I thought I saw it, but do you have the ability to run in a, cookieless or, like, session like, de-identified mode?
Yeah, you have like both modes. Let me see if I can find it quickly in the docs. So like we have, so like the idea is you can have like two modes. Like in this case, for Maple, I run it in fully a cookie mode with is not privacy first. So in this case, you do need some privacy banner, but in this case, you do have some privacy options. In this case, like for example, if you don't want a cookie banner, etc., you can require consent to do it. You can disable subdomain cookie, so it just has like a session ID that just dies when the user closes the browser session, etc. As well as you can like mask all input. So if you really want to, you can really make it like privacy first, so you don't collect any sort of user data, but just the session itself. Um, yeah, I think most people actually run it in that mode, um, which makes sense since most people just use it for debugging purposes. But you don't need to. You can do both. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, here we can kind of see like how it's set up. I can also show it in the example app. So like basically, for example, like Maple ships with like a direct like effect SDK, but you can also use it without effect. But
Yeah, I
the
would actually like to know,
Mhm.
uh, like, we've seen a little bit of the UI and stuff like that, and it's very, very cool. It looks great. Hang on 1 second, my microphone is stuck on my desk. Um, but one thing I'd also like to see if you're able to show us is like let's say I've got an application and I want to hook it up to Maple, either Maple local or like my observability stack or whatever. Do you have any like examples of what you could like showing us how like all that works? Like how easy is it to hook, for example, like Maple local up? If I have like a separate observability stack I'm using in production, but I want to like leverage Maple for local development since it's since I don't want to set up like I don't know Grafana LGTM or something like that. What would that look like?
Yeah, so like for like local setups, if you really just want to use it local, this is already just like a spec version of like an open telemetry collector. So like if we look at the example that you guys have on like the fake dogs, um, mm, 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 not logger. How do I find that? Observability tracing. Like if we just look at whatever we have here for the link, you actually just need to use like the local link. Can I find it in docs? But yeah, you basically only need to do is replace the actual link that you would use for Grafana or whatever. I mean, here's no link right now.
Is it like the layer that you would
Yeah,
basically like
yeah,
the telemetry layer?
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, but yeah, you can just literally just replace that. I mean, it uses the standard port that like all of the observability tools really use. So like if you just leave it locally running like this and don't configure anything, it should also just send it there because like it's I think it defaults to like port 4318. So like it's really really simple to set up. You can just
Mhm.
start it and it should just work. Like you don't really need to do anything. So just like download the CLI and then in this case what we saw before. Like this uses like the hosted version of the UI.
Oh,
Just
we got a raid of people from Dylan's stream. Welcome, Dylan Raiders, to the Effect Office Hours party. Real quick, I don't want to interrupt you for too long, David, but um, two things we're doing today. First, today we announced that we released the first release candidate of Effect 4.0, which is super exciting for us. So there's a blog post you all can take a look at. I'll link it in my Twitch. Hang on. But basically, hang on here. We are entering the release candidate phase for 4.0. We believe we've gotten to a point where um, we think the code is in a place where we could mint a stable release, but before we do that, we want to have a phase where the community starts to upgrade more and more of their applications to affect V4 and gives us feedback about V4 running in production. This way, we can fix any last minute issues or address any paper cuts that remain, and try to like get 4.0 to be the best effect release we've had ever. Um, so you can go and read the blog post for kind of what it means to be in like the release candidate phase for 4.0. But we're super excited. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is we have David from Superwall here talking to us about um, the things that he's built with Effect. Right now, we're talking about Maple, which is an open source observability platform built on top of Effect. And we're currently looking at Maple Local, which is a CLI you can run on your local machine while you're doing local development. Um, and basically connect your Effect application through all the standard methods, basically via a layer to Maple running locally. And you get this nice UI you can visit to inspect your traces and logs and all that sort of stuff. So that's what we were talking about right now is like after you connect your app to Maple Local, like what do you see? What do you get? Um, yeah, sorry, David. I just wanted to say hi to all the raiders.
perfect. But yeah, so like yeah, basically just start it and then just visit like local.maple.dev and that's all you need to do to get it up and running with basically any stack. It also like supports like all of the protocols. Like even some people use it with like Java stacks or whatever. Like you can kind of use it for like anything really. Yeah, and like the big advantage here is it uses like the same query engine. If you use like Maple, like the hosted version as well, has the same query engine for like the local version as well as like the version that you would run in production. So it's like really nice for like your agent to like make sure that the feature actually works. So like after like for example you did a session and it made sure everything looks all right, like locally, as we can see like here, like it looks like this here, and he has actually queried it, and then you push it to production, and then the agent can really easily, because he knows the shape of it, easily query it, make sure it's all right, make sure the data looks correct, build dashboards for it, etc. So like the overall
And
work process. Hmm?
folks who don't who maybe haven't used Effect before or who haven't done this before, this is actually a really cool example where that David's showing off here, where a trace that is initiated from the client. So the first step in the trace there, um, the client get that the trace is initiated from the client, propagated to the back end, and connected to the trace on the back end. Um, so Effect supports like connecting traces over the wire. Um, and this is a really nice like visual example of seeing how the trace flows from the front end to the back end. I mean, in a lot of the open telemetry um, compatible providers, you'll have similar ways of like being able to see traces like this. But I actually really like the flow view. I think it's a pretty cool way of like visualizing the trace. Um, especially if like your waterfall or timeline is getting really mm, like difficult to uh grok. I don't know. For me, I'm like very visual, so I like the flow view a lot.
Yeah, I can show like an example for what when it's like really useful. Like if you look into, so like this is like using like cloud version now. Here we can see like the actual like maple traces, and like here's an example of like one that's like a bit more complicated. I mean, it's not that complicated, but you can see here the scraper is doing stuff and it's like querying the client, and the client is doing some stuff. And in this case, here's like a good example, I feel like, where it's like a lot easier to understand what's going on when you look at the flow view. Um, yeah. Um, Yeah, and for like these, that's why I have like three different views in most cases, since I feel like all of them have like some kind of purpose, like comparing like to whatever you want to like debug. So in this case, like we have the flow view as we've seen there, like the timeline view that we have like seen multiple times now, and then the view that I use the most, to be honest, is like the waterfall view, which just kind of makes it really really easy to see it, like the actual tree rather than the execution time, which makes it like a lot easier to get like an initial like overview or what's wrong, etc. Because here I could like really easily say or tell like, oh, this layer is like erroring, etc. Like if it would be erroring, for example, or like if it's really
there,
slow.
there was a question from chat. Can the session recording slash playback stuff work with mobile apps built in other frameworks like Flutter?
For mobile, it's really just web right now, but there's going to be a mobile session replay as well, coming sometime next month. But yeah, this currently is web only. Um,
Cool. And what does it look like? Do you have any examples of like what the error view would look like if you got a trace with an error that you needed to like inspect?
we can see like here we can just look for error traces. So like here in this view, this is like the view you would actually like use for like hunting down errors, etc. So like here we have like a really nice view to just like get errors. So here we can just toggle it and then just root traces. So these are like root errors now, which probably doesn't help us that much because most of them are going to be like um, user based errors. But for example, here, like that's a pretty big trace as we can see, because like the alerting service, which does quite a lot. So here we can see in this view, we can see already in the minimap here, there's some red here. So we can see these are erroring. Like if you look in this view, for example, we can also see it here or in the flow view. Okay, the flow view is really hard to read in this for this trace. This is a good example why you need multiple different views depending on the problem you have. But yeah, so let's stay on this view. But for example, now we could click on this here. This looks a bit broken right now because the text a bit weird, but here we can see kind of look into it. We can see the actual error that the message was posted. You can see it ingest, the Cloudflare metric ingest returned like 402. And we can see here if there's any connected logs, etc. Here we can see all of the connected attributes that we set. But as we can see, there's not a lot of data here because, yeah, I don't annotate much data there. But yeah, here we can see like how an error view would look like. With the another thing going, we have like this view, which aggregates all of the errors together. So here we can see the errors that happen
Oh,
most
that's
of the
cool.
time. So like here we can see, for example, the first like 12 hours. Here we can see, for example, I also like ended like log all of the things that happen in the CLI. So like for end users, you can opt out of it, but I get some data from it. So here we can, for example, look into it. We can see when it was last seen, when was the error message, and basically gets fingerprinted and combined. And then we can click on here and see all of the errors. So you can see these are all like together. So here you can kind of see all of the errors that get grouped together. And then, for example, I could just like look, for example, for just a web app, and here we can see all of the errors that happened in the web app in the last 24 hours and the last 12 hours, or I can do a different time period if I wanted to. Yeah, and then last part, you can also click on details here. And here we can see a bit more about the data about the error. So here we can see like a frequency error. So we can see this error happens quite a lot of time. So like, let's get a bit more data in. So we can see this has been happening for quite a long time. In this case, we can see it cannot find some event that it thinks it exists, but it doesn't for some reason. Um, but
So so this obviously Maple is written in Effect. Are you using Effect V4 for Maple?
yeah, I'm using V4 for both Hazel and Maple. They're both on V4. Um,
Time to upgrade.
yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, V4 has been going really good. Like I don't really have many issues with it so far. Been pretty smooth.
What what could we look at technically in the code that like you're really proud of? I'm actually curious. So did you implement like a full open telemetry compatible like ingestion layer like for this?
I
And like
but
basically like the whatchamacallit, um collector protocol?
I did, but that part is set in Rust, not in Effect. That's like the only part of the code
No.
base that's not in Effect. Yeah, since like I kind of just build it for like I have some, for example, like Superwall also runs on Maple. So and we have like a lot of traces. We do over like 20 billion traces a day. So
Oh wow.
I had to like optimize a lot for like the ingestion servers. That's why it's already written in not in Effect anymore, but in Rust. But yeah, we can look for some other code. That's like sadly not in Effect anymore. That's like the one thing that's not in Effect. But everything else is in Effect. So like I use Effect Atom on the front end with like a library, another person in Effect. Sadly I forgot his name. But like unit flow, which someone made. Um, I can find out his name later. But basically, I use unit flow and effect atom on the front end, and in the back end, it's just effect. And I think maybe the most interesting thing we could look at is like the query engine of it, since there's a lot of like engineering gone into like the caching layer of it, the query builder for ClickHouse, for example, etc. I think which is kind of interesting, but we can also look at something else if there's something else that you might be interested in or someone is.
People are always asking about uh Effect Atom, so we could look at that. The caching layer also sounds very interesting. Maybe we start with like some backend stuff with like the caching layer that you've
Mhm.
built that you mentioned, and then we can sort of see if the the chat here has uh any questions. There was actually another question that came in Is it possible to add alerts and dashboards in an IAC way, an infrastructure as code way, or is it all declarative in the UI at the moment? Like,
You
I think the
can
question is there an API that can be hit to create alerts and dashboards?
There's an API, and there's also, if we look into, in what folder is it? There is also Alchemy resources that I created for it. Like we can look at it here. Like I created Alchemy resources for it, and then I think if we click on examples, I feel like that's like because like Alchemy, I mean, it has also been on the office hours here. Like it's such a good library, and I cannot really work without it anymore in like effect. And yeah, you can fully use. I don't actually know if I did it in this example, but like I made like resources for everything. So like if you already use Alchemy, you can just use the resources that I already provide with it. Like we can
Nice.
see here, like you can kind of like create like anything from it. And yeah, since like already Maple is in effect, also the errors are like I can just use the same errors, which is kind of nice. So yeah, that's the one way to do it. The other way is like we also just have an API. So like if you look into here and then there, um, oh yeah, that link doesn't work. That's fantastic. But yeah, but yeah, there's also
Live demos.
yeah, that's always in the live demos. Yeah, but yeah, you also just have an API that you can normally hit, which is the same API also the dashboard uses, so it's heavily tested, which is nice. Um,
Yeah, that's sick. I love Alchemy as well. I'm a huge fan of Alchemy. I think
it's so
Sam and co have built something really amazing with Alchemy. Um, I'm sure that he'll be very excited about the release candidate because we sort of kind of blocked him from from upgrading with a breaking change that we made that then the Drizzle folks had to address, that then
yeah,
Sam had to address.
yeah,
Anyway,
that's why.
we got it all sorted, but
Yeah, it's hard, yeah. But yeah, that's why I already like but it's a quick that's why I love patches. Like I could just like patch alchemy for it. Yeah. Um, yeah,
um
alchemy is great.
so there's a lot that I want to talk about, and obviously the chat can like ask us to look into anything specific that you folks want to see as well. Um, I do want to dive into code. The last thing from like a feature perspective, I forgot to ask about, but I wanted to, is like the AI features of Maple. So I know you mentioned like the MCP and things like that. So maybe you could talk just briefly about like the local and remote features of Maple that make it work well with AI agents, or
Mhm.
like what you can use to like what you can give your agent access to.
Yeah, so like the coolest thing I guess is the CLI. Like if we also just do help, like the CLI is basically, as we can see, has like a bunch of like commands like slow traces, traces, log patterns, etc., which work across the local version that we already have running and see right there, but also remote version. So that's one thing you can give your agent access to and works really well already. Of just like giving him the CLI, logging into the CLI, and just letting it rip kind of on it. That's often what I do. But I think the biggest power is like in the MCP itself. Because I spent a lot of time on like optimizing the MCP. I've probably like 200, 300 hours or something. And at this point, it's so good that I don't really use anything else. Like basically, I actually don't know if I dox myself if I show my cloud stuff. Yeah, okay, there's no.
It's okay. That's why we have the ability to rotate API keys, right? So.
Yeah. So that's why let me just stay out of it for now. But yeah, like most of my workflows now is just like saying like, hey Claude, is often like with, from also from Slack, etc. Can you look into why for this user and give him the ID something errors? And it can literally just like look for traces for the specific organization, then look into why they had that error, then actually also creates alerts for it. Like a lot of like it can create dashboards, it create alerts. So for example, here we have like in dashboards I use a lot for like the query engine cache to see like if it works really well. This is like fully built with AI, and AI also has access to like the dashboards, etc. So it can not only debug stuff like current traces, look at metrics, but it can also create alerts for you, create dashboards, can actually look at the dashboards data, etc. Um, so it makes it really, really powerful. Yeah, and the last thing that Maple can do, Maple also has like AI investigations that like automatically start if you enable them. So in this case, I automatically will detect like anomalies that happened. So like for example, I don't think we had like an issue right now, but for example, like if we had like the ingest service here and the latency would spike or like the error rate would spike up, then it would automatically start an investigation and check if it can find anything that's wrong. And if it finds something, will actually propose a solution for you. It will not write code for you right now. It will just like tell you a resolution, and then you can query that with your agent or automate connect it to linear or whatever. Like for example, here we can see it automatically triggered because there were a lot of scrape attempt failures. You can see it created an incident, it diagnosed it, it confirmed something, and in this case, it created automatically a verdict, for example. This is really, really useful for like the really quick errors that you have and you might catch too late. So basically, this tries to already find a fix before you even know that something is wrong. Um, it's not perfect right now, like, but it's pretty decent. I use it quite a lot for like bigger issues. Like it often finds stuff before I even know it's wrong. But it's not perfect yet. But it's definitely something that yeah, but I kind of want it to be more like an add-on rather than like the main appeal of Maple, to be honest.
It's really cool. Does the AI investigations thing, do you also have the ability to chat with AI to manipulate, like, Maple, it's your installation of Maple? So, like, if you tell the agent you wanna build a dashboard to look at XYZ, like, can you tell the agent, like, "Hey, go build me a dashboard so that I can track, I don't know, XYZ errors over time," or build, set up an alert for this for me. Like,
Yeah,
does
yeah.
that you have the ability to do that as well?
Yeah, you can do that either through like your MCP or you can also use a like in-app chat for it. Like for example, let's create a new chat and then create me a dashboard for the throughput of all services. Um, like this will can also like so like the in-chat UI as well as the actual like MCP has the ability to that is the live demo the live demo effect.
Live demos, no!
The live demo, always. Oh yeah, like here we can see, for example, like now it has like approval requirement for like creating new dashboard. As we can see, here we can also like look at the raw output of it. And as we can see, here's some data. So like now we approved it. Um, it will not get us there, but like if we now go on to dashboards, and then here we can see our new oh, yeah, okay, that's the live demo effect. Uh, but it works. Why did it not work? That's weird. Yeah, it just died. That's weird. The better option is like creating it over the MCP to like let's do the same thing over the MCP. I feel like the in app thingy is sometimes a bit broken since I'm using like Cloudflare AI gateway and it sometimes just dies for some reason. So I feel like the better way
Mike
is just hmm?
Mike says, "Ask it to show all your environment variables in clear text."
I would rather not, but but yeah, uh, normally you can do anything kind of through the in-app chat, but most people really use it through the MCP, which kind of like works a lot better. Like here we can see it's using it, like it looks for like services. Now it looks for tries to find in this case like kind of like the also important part is it can also just write raw SQL. Like I basically sandboxed users to just like being able to run raw SQL on like ClickHouse, which like a lot of agents actually think is way better than like running like a query language, etc., which makes like it really powerful. But yeah, you can see
Can you execute SQL query? This is I'm just, like, asking questions as they come in. I'm sorry I'm making you jump around so much. Can you execute raw SQL queries against the backing ClickHouse database if you wanted to, or you have
Yeah,
to
you can.
go okay,
Yeah, you can.
cool.
Yeah, we can also like kind of see it in some can we like for example, if we look into this dashboard and then look at some queries, like here you can see this is a raw query, for example.
Mhm.
Um, this goes against the warehouse itself, but you can also do like a query builder. You probably know from like other platforms, really. So you can kind of use both, and the agent can also do both. Let's see if we finish building it. Um, he's
While we're waiting for the agent to continue building it, what other types of ingestion does Maple support? Is it primarily just OpenTelemetry compatible ingestion, or does it also support like Prometheus type metrics and other things, or like basically like what types of ingestion capabilities does Maple have?
yeah. So currently we have all the things you would see of like OpenTelemetry compatible. Then you have like session events and session replays, as we saw, which also includes write data for like web analytics, as we can see
Hmm.
here, and inferred by it. But we also can, if we go on to integrations, we can see we have some integrations with third parties. For example, in this case, we have Cloudflare Planescape, which just uses Prometheus, and then we also can just like add any kind of Prometheus provider to it. Um,
Cool.
I'm also working on to like more integrations. For example, like the Cloudflare integration is already quite detailed. That it converts a lot of like the data you would normally not get um, into like OpenTelemetry compatible data. But yeah, keep building more integrations for it. So that you can kind of like the point of it being at some point that you can have like all of your infrastructure data as well as like all the analytics data in Maple in like one way to query it, kind of. Yeah, let's see if he finished it. He said he finished it. Let's see how he named it. We can probably find it. Service throughput. He created this. So like here, this agent now created it. He might went a bit overboard, but here we can see the total spans we had in the last 6 hours, active services, some throughputs. Ah, that's actually nice. He made like a throughput per service and some other graphs. So yeah, here we can see it's really they're kind of good at it. And the cool thing is you always have like a version history to it. So like if your agent edited something and was like a failure setter, you can just like go back to like a version from you had previously. So you can kind of like restore old versions, compare them, etc. So you can like let your agent like freely edit stuff, and you're not really need to be worried that it might break something. Yeah.
Yeah, this is sick. Um, Very cool. So, I know you mentioned, so maybe we can like take a look at some of the code, but one of the things you had mentioned was like the query builder cache, I think. But are there any other aspects of the code base we could take a look at that like you think show off like some cool patterns or things like that the chat might be interested in?
Mm, to be honest, like, um, that's a, that's a good question. I feel like one is always like because there's like a lot of things that are interesting, but I feel like most of it a lot of the code is a lot of glue to like kind of like glue different things together. Like the ingestion part is a bunch of glue. The query engine, in a sense, is also a bunch of glue. But I feel like one thing we could definitely look at, what which is kind of interesting, is we can definitely look into a bit more of like the way I do errors, because I feel like that's like one thing I often see in a lot of effect apps that is still like not too good. And like most code bases I've kind of like dove into, since I feel like you can shoot yourself into the foot quite easily. So maybe that's something we
Sure.
can look at.
Yeah, let's look.
But yeah, so yeah, yeah. So like as I said before, like we use um, we use effect atom all the way through. So in this case, you would want to best case show like errors from like good error messages from like your tags, etc. So I'm trying to basically give as much information to the client as well as like to the obviously is also really useful for like the MCP or like any agent really that looks at it, not only the client. So I'm trying to really make sure that error values actually make sense on the client. So in
Okay.
this case, for example, um, here we can see something. In this case, this is for like getting errors. In this case, this is on the front end. So I heavily also use effect on the front end. And when we look into this here, we can see we always have like a oh, tagged backend error. Mm, mm, mm. Here. Oh wait, that's not the right one. Where is that? Um, oh yeah, here. So like this is basically I did a bunch. So this is like all the things that are required just on the front end to kind of make sure to actually display something on the like something useful on the client. So basically, for like every single thing, we always have some values we actually give from the server. So in this case, the client basically just needs to look at the actual error and make sure what it has to do with it. So in this case, we can see we always have retryable. So when a new error comes in, even if it's an unknown one, so for example, if not, we don't query it over effect atom, but we, for example, query it over like an MCP client, etc. The client can just tell by the error it gets from the like object if it's retryable or if it's recoverable. So in this case, we give like a bunch of hints. In this case, also like for example, like if it's retryable, and in this case also like a doc URL. So in this case, I'm really hard trying to make it debuggable for both like humans and agents, and that has helped like quite a lot because, for example, when there's now an error and for example the agent doesn't really know what's going on, it first always looks at like if it's recoverable. So like it will often retry it, as we can saw as well. Like here, I think it probably like failed here, and in this case, like it got some error message that was from the title, and I don't think Claude shows it to us, but it will also like tell it like kind of like what's wrong and if it's recoverable. So like recovery will kind of like show you like a string of actually how to recover it.
So
And
the back end is basically if there's an error that's sent by from the back end to your client,
Mhm.
these are all the properties that you might expect in the error coming from the
Yeah.
back end if it's a back end error. And like the back end would be populating these details if it can.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like these, yeah, sometimes they don't have it. I guess we can like kind of like look through some of them here. Like here we can see I created some like helpers to like create like these policies for like some text, as we can see. So like I made like these sort of like error warehouses to kind of build them out. But here we can kind of see for like investigations what kind of errors we could get, and I'm trying to basically then map to what it could happen. For example, like a persistent error. So that means probably like our backend is down or like whatever happened. So in this case, it would tell the client to back off, but to how to recover it would be retrying, and the origin is at fault here. And the exposure is redacted in this case, meaning like any extra data that we might have shouldn't be shown to the client, since maybe the error like actual like object has some more data to it. In this case, it would be redacted.
Mm,
Yeah, and I have like a bunch of these warehouses, and that's like one like pattern I found works really well with like both for me as a human to read error messages, as well as for like agents and like build good front end UI, because this makes it really easy for me to then go on the front end and I can literally just like display the title in most cases. I already know if I should retry it or not, and so it makes it really easy to display different states, work with agents on it, etc.
Yeah, it's a cool pattern. It's a good idea, in general, um, like, outside of, like, Maple,
Yeah.
giving I tried to do something similar actually with the AI SDK in effect when I refactored the AI error data type. Um, the, like, whole I don't I you may or may not have seen, um, the, like, reason pattern, which we've discussed on
Yeah.
office hours before. But the idea being that, like, every reason embeds, like, a bunch of useful context to tell the framework whether or not it can, like, retry or whatever. Um, but anyways, this is interesting, especially from, like, the agentic perspective, like, if the agent sees errors like this, being able to, like, figure out, if there's something that it can do to fix the problem or not, like, just by looking at the error message is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also makes it really nice. It's a nice like pattern for like also agents to understand how to add to your code base. It's like if you do this everywhere, like the agent will automatically like add good error types to it. Since I have in my experience seen most agents create a lot of slop error tags in effect. I
Yeah,
don't know why, but they create a lot of slop. So like this pattern like kind of prevents a lot of like these slop error types, which is also really nice. So yeah, this is like one part that took me quite a while to get to this pattern, but yeah, I feel like this is like one of the things that helped me quite the most, and it's like really easy to set up and I get going. So I can definitely recommend it.
nice. Yeah, this is very cool. Um, there's someone in the chat. Have slop? Use slop cup. I've been working on a little effect app, literally 100% vibe coded, but
Mm.
called Slop Cop, which is just like automations for our repository, just to let me experiment with alchemy and also with FoldKit because I really wanted to have an excuse to try out some of the projects we've showcased on office hours. So, does anybody in chat have any questions about Maple or for David in general? There's a question. Is it a good idea to have something like a backend error that has a cause union of shared errors like unauthorized, forbidden, and then have the additional endpoint specific errors? Um, I think that that's what David and I are almost arguing against right now. I think if you're going to do something like that, you should probably at the minimum lean into this like reason pattern we've sort of like adopted in the effect project, which is like you have a global parent error type with all of the sub error types embedded underneath in like a reason property because we have some combinators built in that allow you to deal with that. Um, but I think what David's arguing here is like you can have a lot of additional information on the error type itself that like makes it much easier to figure out what to do, both for like the human and for the agent when the error arrives on the front end. Um, talking about HTTP API, yeah. So I think that um, for HTTP API, it's a little bit different because the union of errors that you specify in your HTTP API are the reason why you can put like an array of different error types is so that you can have different status codes and errors that your API actually returns. So like in that case, you kind of don't want to have a global parent error type because that your API returns because then you're stuck with one status code sort of like um like having multiple error types allows you to attach a separate status to the different errors. So like if you have an unauthorized error, you get a 401, or if you have an internal server error, you get a 500, or if you get like a bad request, it's a 400 or whatever that is. Um, so yeah, and then David's got an example here as well of like these different errors and like I think that there is a use case for having a shared error type to clean up like the error channel in your application code. But when it's going over the wire, you often need more information than just like you often need more information than a single error type can provide, is my experience.
Oh, I like one thing I also like kind of experienced with like one error type is you often collapse like a lot of like useful data into like one thing, since you will like naturally do that because you somehow need to map to that one error type at some point. So it just makes it a lot harder to debug later on in like OpenTelemetry data, etc. Since like naturally you will lose quite a lot of like useful like debugging data most of the time at least. Um,
Um, Hang on one second. I realized my Twitch stream has the wrong title on it. Yet another reason why Riverside useless. Um, so yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Um, but yeah. So yeah, maybe we can um, see if the chat has any other questions. And then you guys, if you guys have any questions about both like general code as well as also any questions about like the effect release candidate release that we just did, happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, we've been going for about an hour. So we could probably think about um, finishing up office hours, but I want to give some time to folks if you have any questions about the release candidate or anything like that. There's another question. Thanks for the input. Crashing a little bit with HTTP API. I am suggesting using HTTP API on my work instead of Next.js API endpoints, and I'm sketching out how it could be used. Yeah, I would say model your errors based on what you want your API to return. Like, you know, when you need to figure out what each endpoint should be able to return to the client and go from there. There was a question, a friends. Okay, wait. Hey friends, I work at a publicly traded company and I want to use Effect to build our internal MCP servers. The blocker is support for the July 28th, 2026 specification. Could this possibly be made a priority? Did you know that 99% of users are blocked at using the MCP from Effect because we don't support the latest protocol? 99%. No, I'm just kidding. Um, we are working on it. It is not prioritized. We won't prioritize that type of work currently because we're trying to stabilize the core of Effect. There are 3 questions in Discord, FYI. I'll get to them. And the AI SDK, while it obviously is important to us and we will continue developing it, it's not like our priority is trying to stabilize core so we can exit pre-release and actually get to a stable 4.0 release. That being said, there is currently work ongoing from one of our community members, Lloyd, actually, who's been doing a fantastic job with helping get our MCP server into better shape. So soon we'll have support for almost all the protocols except for the most recent one, based on the work that Lloyd's been doing. And after that work is merged, we will be able to start figuring out how we can support the latest protocol. Because I'm sure even David, you're interested in that since Maple has like an
yeah,
MCP. I don't know if you're using Effects MCP server, but
yeah, I actually am patching it currently for this exact reason.
David's got a massive effect patch just to make everything work the way that he wants. No, yeah. So the goal was that you? Are you the 99% OG? I think that wait, oh my god. Homie, are you literally the guy's name is Homie, I'm not calling him Homie. Uh, his username is Homie. Are you the original 99% person? That's amazing. Oh my god. You didn't know that was a thing? It's been a meme on office hours since you first said it. Oh my god. That's an unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Welcome back. Yes, so the long and short of it is, are we working on it? Yes. Will it be prioritized? No. But we are working on it. Yeah, running gag for more than weeks. It's been months. Ever since it was first mentioned, it's been a running gag. Um, does the RC docs contain cluster docs? Not yet. um, there was a comment in chat, David. Hey, David, recently tried local Maple instance in a project. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank
Um, it would be cool. Same person says it would be cool to have a dev tool similar to what Tanstack Dev Tools does with an on-screen widget. I guess what would the widget contain? Maybe you could give David some of that feedback as well. Even in like the Maple repo would be good, just in case I don't see it before we finish office hours. Yes, I was the one coming into office hours saying, "Hey, no one can use effect because of drizzle effect support." That is honestly amazing. Welcome back.
you.
Honestly amazing. Oh my god, that's so funny. And you are back yet again with 99% of users are blocked because we don't support the most recent MCP protocol. Which Maple are we talking about? The lending thing? No, we're talking about Maple.dev, which David develops and is an observability platform that you should check out. We're also talking about the effect release candidate release and how everybody is excited. Let me just take a peek at Discord. Uh, where's the office hours channel? Um, Lloyd, we'll code review your stuff another time. Sorry, bud. But we will get to it. Maybe next week on office hours. What is the recommended way for OTPL FIWS? I'm gonna assume you mean OTLP. What is the recommended way for OTLP interop between effect and promise-based code? When I use node SDK.layer, effect spans show up, but anything from outside effect does not. In this scenario, effect would be the entry point with a ton of try promise calls, which do tracing inside. It depends. If effect is the entry point for your app, then you'd propagate the current span into your promise-based code. And if you're using the open telemetry integrations, I think we have oh god, I always forget all of the different methods that we have, but there's a way to set the global tracer, I think, for parts of the code. Anyway, you would have to set up the open telemetry tracer to be the effect tracer. If effect is the entry point for your app. If it's the other way around and promise-based code is the entry point, you have effect embedded in it, um, you would propagate the current trace, I think, or current span, into your effect code. There's methods for that as well. So it depends on which way the app is oriented. I'm having a problem wrapping my head around proper effect errors with the reason field. All right. There's some code here we'll take a look at. David, I don't want to hog your time while we look at this question from office hours, but I do want to thank you very much for coming on and showing off Maple, spending some time with us. Folks, you should go check out Maple and let David know if there's anything you'd like to see. But yeah, I wanted to thank you very much for joining. You can obviously stick around and hang out, but I also don't want to hog your time. So I'm going to be answering a few questions from chat. Um, before I close up office hours. So you can feel free to stick around, or you can hop off and get started with your day or finish your day, depending. But yeah,
finishing my day, but yeah, yeah, I think I'm gonna go in a second.
cool. Well, thank you again, David, for your time. It was really really cool learning more about Maple. And yeah, have to check it out.
It was a pleasure. Excited to update to the release candidate now after this call.
99% of users are blocked.
Yeah, I guess I'm blocked. That's
Blocked. You're blocked. It's terrible.
it really is though.
All right, let me pull up this code snippet for the user who had this question. I'm just opening my terminal, trying to figure out how to share this screen because every time I open Riverside, it's in a different place. Okay, Riverside, where are you? Share window, this share. Can you see my screen, chat? Excellent. Okay. So there was a question in Discord saying that we're using this master transfer repository error everywhere, even though the add function can only throw one of these reason errors. How to deal with that? What if the transfer repository error in the future gets more reasons and we're going to have a similar situation as an add or other functions? Let's take a look. So you've got this transfer repository error. It's got some reasons in here. And now you have this add method. It should only throw persistence error and not found. Well, so there are a few things to be aware of when you have this when you use the reason pattern. And for folks who are unfamiliar with it, the reason pattern that we introduced in Effect v4 is literally just having a parent error type that has a reason property that can have sub errors attached to it. So let's do a concrete example here. So import, let's just do this schema and effect. So export class error a, my error a, extends schema dot tagged. Wait, I thought we got rid of tagged error class. We did. It's just my LSP is old. My error b, 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 and then my parent error. And this would have a reason that is a schema.union of my error A and my error B. So, and then we would have like a declare const program effect my parent error. So, the whole concept of like this reason pattern is basically to allow you to not blow up the error channel when you have a lot of different errors that could happen. And we really introduced it mostly so that our own SDKs wouldn't blow up your error channel. So, like, for example, the AI error in effect. So import from effect unstable AI, like our AI error type. Uh, reason somewhere over here. We didn't want like every time you call a method from like our AI SDK or the CLI package or the platform package for you to just keep ballooning your error channel to like a bajillion errors. So, like the because the alternative is we expose all the errors and you end up with like every time you call language model.generate or a platform method, you end up with 20 different errors in your error channel and your types become unreadable. So the reason pattern was kind of introduced to address that so that you instead get like a nice clean error in here and you can deal with it that way. So there are a few different ways you can deal with errors that have reasons in them. So the first would be using the catch reason combinators. Sorry. So first you would catch the parent error, then you would specify the reason you want to catch, and then you deal with it however you want to deal with it. Um, and this is fine, except for it doesn't. You can't. You can't erase. There's no way for us to erase a reason from the parent error based on these combinators, right? There's no way for us to say, oh, you've caught my error A inside my parent error. There's nothing on the type level that lets us erase this. So this is really not meant to allow you to erase errors. It's a way to allow you to handle errors, right? Like it's not meant for that purpose. Um, to deal with this, if you know you've handled all of the errors that could possibly happen, you can then just die, right? This is one way you could do this, right? Excuse me. You could just die after you've caught all of the relevant reasons. If you know you've caught all the reasons you want to deal with, and then you don't want to deal with any of the other ones, you could just, you know, die with the rest of the errors. Um, you can also like further, manipulate the error by catching the error and only dealing with particular like you can manipulate the error however you want. There's also catch reasons if you want to catch multiple reasons at once. But it's not this particular pattern is not meant to allow you to erase errors from the error channel. So like it's meant to clean up the error channel. What you can do instead, if you want to deal with these reasons directly and be able to erase them is use effect.unwrap reason, which says take this parent error type and unwrap all of its reasons into the error channel. So now if you look at this effect, you end up with the reasons in the error channel instead of the parent error. And then you can deal with these the normal way, right? Effect.catch tags and deal with the errors as you want. So based on the example that I was given, in Discord. I almost think that the if you if you only want persistence error and not found to be returned, I would argue that using the reason pattern here is not appropriate. That you should instead specify the granular errors you want returned, because there's no way to do what you want to do with the reason pattern unless you unwrap the reasons into the error channel. If that makes sense. Hopefully that's clear, Spitty. Like the reason pattern was introduced to clean up the error channel. Um, but if you have granular errors you want to return from a method, you should specify them and not use the reason pattern for that particular use case. Oh god, I missed so much in chat. Oh boy. Um, do, 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 do. Thank you, David, by the way, um, for attending. Max, the LSP also still has service map. Are you trolling me? 99% of users can't use Maple. It's on an old effect version. uh, I've had my friends complain that the beta contained breaking for changes. Sorry, it's a beta. It's implied. Uh, Alphas are allowed to have breaking changes and betas are for bug fixes. That's false. That is just blatantly false. You can have breaking changes even in a release candidate between release candidate versions. Can someone explain the difference between having a reason versus an error? I mean, okay, backing up, literally the only reason why you would introduce this reason property onto an error is if you have a ton of errors that you want to group up and display on in the type system as a single error, right? In application code, most of the time you don't want to do this and you just want to use the errors directly because you generally want to deal with the errors themselves in application code. Where this like reason pattern, having a reason property that like has sub errors in it comes into play and is somewhat useful is when you have an SDK that has its own error type and you don't want that error type to blow up the user's error channel, right? Because like imagine my program was um using AI error here, right? If we didn't have this reason pattern introduced, then every single time you use a, a method from our AI SDK that could error, you would end up with this in your error channel. So, like if we did not wrap it all up under a parent error. Like, do you understand why it's like for SDKs it can be useful, right? I don't even know how many error types there are here, but like this would be a horrible user experience if you were using our AI SDK and like you ended up with this in your error channel every single time you used one of our methods. I think in general, like usually users want to handle a subset of this and then elect the rest of the potential errors to defects. So you could do like, I don't know, catch reasons, right? And maybe we only want to catch network errors and do something with them. For now, we'll just effect a void. And then let's just say the rest of the errors should all be defects. Well, we can just do this. And now our error channel has nothing in it, right? So like that's the whole point of this pattern. Like in application code, I would just ignore this most of the time. Like I don't think that in application code, this is super useful. Can it also be optional to break down errors? I think thinking about a database error and refining it to unique constraint errors, a resource found. The only way to do that to break down errors is to unwrap. If you're using this reason pattern, is to unwrap them. That's the only way to narrow them down. I've been using V4 beta, constantly updating every couple of days to the latest beta to run an agent harness at work, and it works like a charm. Thank you. We're doing our best to not break things, but we break things when we have to while we're in beta. Um, all right. I do want to highlight one last time um, the fact the effect release candidate release. So let me stop sharing this screen and instead I'll share this screen yet again. Blog. Share. Share. So I want to highlight one more time that we're finally at the point where we think that effect is potentially ready for a stable release, but we're not quite ready to do a stable release. So we've tagged our first release candidate, right? The whole point of entering this like release candidate phase for Effect 4.0 is to tell the community that we're confident in Effect V4. Uh, we're confident enough that you all can start upgrading your production applications to V4. And actually test out V4 like in your production code bases. Um, we want to be clear that like we think that it's ready. And we're basically asking the community to give us feedback on things that they think are not working properly or issues that you run into or paper cuts that you still feel exist in 4.0. Um, so release candidate is exactly what it says in this blog post. It's a statement that we're confident, but it's not us claiming that we don't have any more work to do on 4.0. It's more a way of signaling to you all that like we believe you can finally upgrade your production applications, and that we're not planning to make any more breaking changes at this stage, but that if we have to address something that we believe would be wrong to ship in a stable release, we will. The whole point of RC is that we unblock 99% of RC, but no effect printer. Yeah, right. Exactly. Hopefully this is clear to you all. I think the blog post makes it pretty clear what our goal is here. Our goal is to signal Effect V4 is ready. You guys should be and to be clear, many folks have been running V4 in production for weeks or months now, and have been pretty happy with it. As David mentioned, he's running V4 in production. Um, but this is kind of us signaling to the community that we think that it's finally ready, and that you all should tell us uh, if you think otherwise. And then also, two things that kind of are going along with the quality improvement uh, of V4 is documentation. So we're working on improving documentation now. I think you all probably saw that we released the API reference recently. This was a project that I worked on recently to get the API reference out and available in our actual website. But our documentation now also has a version switch, so you can swap between the V4 and V3 docs. To be clear, these V4 docs right now, this initial version is literally just a direct port of the V3 documentation to make sure that everything in here is um, compatible with V4. But this is not the documentation for V4 in its final form. We have a lot of aspirations to improve the docs experience for V4. We just wanted to make sure that we had parity for our V3 documentation for V4 so that folks who are on V4 aren't like looking at V3 docs and wondering why catch-all doesn't exist. um, so anyway, hopefully that's clear. And then the other quality improvement aspect of V4 that we're working on is the tooling aspect. So we still want to continue to improve the developer experience, and we have a lot in the pipeline that we're working on, particularly around like the coding agent experience with Effect. Um, and we really want to make sure that the tooling that we put in your hands um, matches like the scope, the ambition of Effect, but also like the quality um, of the code that we're writing. So anyway, stay tuned. These are two big projects that we're working on while we continue to iterate on the release candidate for V4. V4 still needs a memory file system. Sebastian. Um, all I can say that now there's an actual release candidate and an actual date on the post for Q3 to Q4 for stable. Effect has become a solid candidate for some fintech projects in the works. Yes, we are targeting Q3 to Q4 for stable release. Um, hopefully we can keep to that deadline. This isn't even my final form. FIWS, you know what a good channel to discuss your ideas would be? The Honeypot channel in Discord. Indeed. Yeah, the Git subtree thing that I mentioned in the blog post I wrote a while ago still works pretty well. I have to say though, like this it's weird, but I feel like the latest generation of models are doing pretty well with just searching node modules. Maybe because Effect also publishes like the code. That's true, Mike. Wait, Mike, we did say the year. Sebastian said 2026. Please talk more about the Honeypot channel. Why don't you post something in it and see what happens? Um, anyway, going back to what I was saying about the Git subtree thing. Yeah, so the models have been doing pretty well with just searching node modules, but I also feel like um, if you're using open code, if you're using open code, he's a fucking janitor though. Ah, he's the best janitor. Um, if you're using open code, their references feature that allows you to like reference code bases without putting them into your Git actually works pretty well also. Like on the slop cop project I've been vibe coding. Effect, yes. I can't remember if this is a public project. It is. I think I made it public, right? Yeah. Share. Keep in mind this is 1000% vibe coded, so don't judge me. But in the open code JSON for this project, I just have like a couple of references in here, and even this, like for open code, has been enough. Like the agent does very well with like searching the open code reference if it needs to. So anyway, um, let's see if there were any other questions. It's clear. Okay, good. Uh, um, why doesn't the website have the possibility to enable light mode on mobile? It is probably an oversight. Let me I'll create an issue for that. Oh no, Federico's already on it. Thank you for the report, Dagoot. Um, all right, folks. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for attending Office Hours number 41. Hopefully, you all enjoyed our conversation with David as well as our release candidate announcement. Um, we'll be back next week with more effect stuff for you. If you didn't get your questions answered today, or if you didn't get your code reviewed today and you want us to take a look, make sure you come next week um, armed with stuff for us to look at. But until then, thank you all very much. Cheers, all my effect enjoyers, and we'll see you next week.